Welcome back to the garage, guys. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning back in. If you like the content, maybe consider hitting the like button down there, subscribing. In the last video, if you watched it, I built this massive wing off the back, and it's still kind of unfinished, or at least unpainted. And I need to get at least a coat on the mounts down below, and protect them so they don't rust, because those are steel down there. The rest of it's aluminum, so it won't rust. I'm probably in this episode going to get that painted. So we're going to start by just taking this off and painting the mounts. And we're going to cover a bunch of other things. I'm not sure exactly what I'll get to in this episode. There's some electrical stuff. I want to put in a temp gauge for the oil temp sensor that I put in a long time ago. It's probably been 6-8 months since I put that in, and it's plumbed into the oil system, but I don't have a gauge set up. So we'll get to that, and we'll see what else we get to. I've got that wing pulled off, and I pulled the brackets off there, and I've got the first coat of paint on here, letting it dry. Tomorrow we will flip it over and paint the other side. Still not sure what I'm going to do in terms of paint color on that. All right, we're going to go ahead and cut this structure off for the old wing. Should be just 4 cuts. I kind of got everything protected a little bit so I don't get metal shards inside the car, little metal splinters. I don't really want them in my butt or my arms or something as I'm sitting. So we'll get this cut off. Got that cut off and shaved down, ground down to back to roughly round tube. So it's actually still hot, but I'm gonna let that cool off just a minute, and then throw a coat of paint on there. Well, it was time for a phone upgrade, so there is a changing camera midstream on this video. Hopefully it's not too jarring. I don't know what the audio is going to sound like on this new phone, but I got the wing pulled apart, and I'm hitting it with some 220, rounding the edges just a little bit so they're not sharp, and then pretty much done with the 220. Going to change to, I'm sorry, that's 120, and now I'm going to go to 220, and then I'm going to start painting it. I still need to do the elements themselves, get those sanded down, and so then I'll start painting it. I am going to save the reveal for the paint scheme until the end of this video. So try to resist the temptation, I guess, to skip to the end. But yeah, let's get back to it. While I wait for some paint to dry on the wing elements that I'm painting, I'm going to tackle a little electrical issue with the car. I don't know why I chose to do this early on, but I've got this block. I think it's got 6 USB connectors on there for powering cameras and a couple other things like this race box and some other USB items. And to plug that in, because that uses a cigarette lighter, the standard 12-volt plug, and I mounted the cigarette lighter up there, but vibration causes it to come out all the time. And I don't know why I didn't think about this, but I'm going to completely remove that. There's really no reason not to just cut this cable and hardwire this directly to the fuse block down here where that is mounted. It's all 12 volts anyway. So we're going to eliminate that as a problem of a vibration issue and just hardwire this USB block directly to the fuse. Simplicity wins. I got this out here. So I'll save all the half pound. That was not why I did it. It's wired into the fuse blocks there, and I shouldn't have that shaking loose and causing things to become unpowered. Next, I think I'm going to tackle this shift knob. This was kind of a makeshift just because I needed a different shift knob, and if I remember correctly, a couple years ago, since the car was orange, I just typed in orange shift knob into Amazon and ran across this Katana, thought it was interesting, and bought it, but it actually doesn't have the right threads. So I've got red Loctite on, if I can get in here, on these little set screws that are held in. They have gummed up the threads a little bit that are on the top of the shifter. They're not bad. Mostly I've just used the bottom ones and not the top ones. The top ones are just kind of snug. Actually, it's completely missing on this top one here. So the threads aren't terrible, but it does have a tendency to come out occasionally as well. And it sits a little taller than I actually want it to because it's so long. So I am going to attempt to make my own shift knob. I have looked online and really haven't found much that I like aesthetically that would fit this car. And the ZF6 transmission that's in the C4 Corvettes has a really unique thread pattern on the shifter. So there's just not a wide selection of shift knobs available. So, you've seen me use Melissa and Doug material before, the finest of automotive materials. It's a kid's toy, but this block is about the right size for me to start. I do have kind of a design in mind, but we're gonna first start with just can I make my own shift knob? And then if I get something that's functional, then we'll start messing with the design. So we're gonna start here. And then on Amazon, I picked up a bag of these 9/16 by 18 nylock washer or nylock nuts. So that's that unique thread pattern, this 9/16 by 18, and came in a bag of 10. That's the smallest number I could buy. I don't remember how much these were, but it's like probably like $10 or something. These nuts aren't super cheap because they're not super common. So plan is to drill a nice straight hole down here and then hopefully make this somewhat of a press fit and some glue of some epoxy of some kind to hold this in. And that should allow me to kind of recess the threads into this knob and thread it on. And then as long as I'm happy with kind of the security that this thing sits right on the shifter, then we'll start modifying this and making it look the way I want it to. I had some of this around, this clear epoxy. It says it works on both steel and wood, so that's what I shoved in there. It did crack a little bit in this dimension because it was just slightly tight, and there was already a crack in the wood. So I went ahead and shoved some epoxy down in there and then clamped it all together. So we'll get this set up overnight, and then tomorrow we will go ahead and throw it on the shift knob and see if it fits and if it's going to work. Well, the wood block is situated on there nicely. Seems pretty solid. I am going to drive it a couple times just to make sure that I'm satisfied with it, and then we'll move on to the next phase. All right, after driving with this for a couple of days, I like it and it's holding up. So the next step is some arts and crafts time. I kind of drew this up in GIMP, cheap Photoshop, and printed it off. I'm going for that kind of paper covered block of C4 because it's a C4 Corvette, and I just thought it'd be fun since I'm making my own shift knob. The orange isn't quite right on this paper, but it's the orange I had for construction paper that my kids had around, so tape that up. The next step is going to be some Mod Podge, clear acrylic I want to cover this in some epoxy to make it nice and durable and hard. But the epoxy, I think, would go into the paper and make it look wet, and I don't want it to look wet. So my understanding is this will go on the paper and seal it so that the epoxy doesn't soak into the paper, and will keep it looking dry. So we're gonna stick this on here. The internet say like 4 or 5 coats probably, so that's probably what I'll do. And then we'll mix up some epoxy and coat this in epoxy. Well, first coat in, it did kind of color the orange a little bit darker, but actually that's kind of good. I like that it's a little darker. However, where I had Scotch tape on it, it doesn't penetrate at all, so it leaves it a little bit different color there, and then kind of on the end. But I'm not totally against that. You know, not that I've ever seen an actual package of C4, but all the pictures you see on the internet or movies or whatever, they're not neatly packaged. So I think the look will kind of work. So we'll go ahead and keep applying a few more coats of this and then put some epoxy on it. Got the first coat of epoxy on. It's kind of dripping down. I'm not sure how many coats I'll do, probably at least 2, maybe 3 or 4. There will be drip marks on the bottom as it drips down, which is fine. I'll sand those up. So we'll let this cure for a few hours and then put another coat on. Okay, it took, I think, 6 layers of epoxy. It just wasn't hard enough on the outside. I could feel the paper underneath flexing when I squeezed it. So got 6 layers on there. I've got some drip marks on both ends from letting it set up, so I'll have to sand it down and then it should be ready to go. All right, got it sanded down and polished up a little bit and screwed on there. I like it. Next, I am going to tackle a cup holder. I have never had a cup holder that I've been satisfied with in this cart, and I've taken a gander at some stuff online and how some other kind of generic cup holders are crafted, how they're put together, and come up with a plan. So I'm starting with probably my favorite cup. It's fairly large. It's a 3-inch ID at the bottom and kind of tapers up from there. So I am using this old can of paint here because the circumference is a little larger than 3. It's almost 4 actually, but that should work. And taking some scrap sheet metal, it's aluminum, and some scrap rubber. So what we're actually going to do is bend this up, and then this rubber will get sandwiched between 2 pieces of metal. Then holes will be cut, and then this will get kind of cut a star shape in it so that the rubber actually sticks out kind of into the holes, and as you slide a cup in, it just kind of grabs it and gives it some tension so it'll accept cups of various sizes. So I'm hoping it works. We're gonna continue cutting and bending here, and we'll see if it works. Got that bent up, folded it over on the edges so that I don't have a sharp edge exposed to my arm, and it gives it some structural strength this direction. I did make a mistake here. I cut as if I was going to fold on this line, but I cut on the wrong line. So these lines were just for spacing, so I could kind of draw out where I wanted the cup holder holes cut. So next you can see I made the same mistake on both sides. Next we'll start cutting out these holes, and and then sandwiching the rubber between the two. All right, got the holes cut out, and then a little piece of rubber sandwiched between the two plates. I actually sandwiched or put the two plates together first without the rubber and cut the holes out so they're identical. And then went ahead and sandwiched that plate in. I've got 4 bolts here, and I'm gonna drill a series of holes. I just want to make sure this rubber doesn't pull in when I put cups in it. Eventually we're gonna cut like a star pattern in this rubber mat. But I gotta drill a series of holes, and then I'm gonna use some rivets to hold it all in, not these nuts. And these bolts will actually get replaced with some rivets once I put a few more rivets in. So we're gonna start drilling some holes through both plates and the rubber piece all at the same time, and then popping some rivets in. I got at least one side riveted in. I'll do the other side next, but I wanted to test it out, make sure that it was operating the way I wanted it to, and I am really happy with it. So just kind of 8 pie cuts, and now it'll accommodate and kind of grip. Let's see if I can get this out with one hand. Cups of several size all the way up to my big favorite mug. So I will get this other side cut out, and riveted in, then cut out and paint it up, and we'll toss it in the car, and I'll have a cup holder finally. I figured while we're working on other interior things, I'd go ahead and get these bars freshened up. This one on the driver's side and that one over there on the passenger side. This driver's side's worse because I use it more and drive it alone sometimes. So the seat belt comes out and hits this bar and nicks the paint, and then it gets a little surface rust on there. So the big spots, I'm not going to worry about all the tiny little nicks, but the big ones I'm going to go ahead and sand down and throw a quick coat of primer on there, and then a couple coats of paint, and eventually some clear coat. I got the bars painted up and clear coated, and the cup holder is in now, and it's nice and secure, and it holds the cups. So that should be nice to be driving around and having my coffee with me. Well, we'll take a quick pause from the build out on the cart, and the 92 Caprice wagon, it went away. The hail damage was too much, so I sold it off, and its replacement is the complete opposite. Tesla Model 3 2022 long range. I've ridden in them a couple times, but it'll be my first experience owning a Tesla, so this should be fun. We probably won't work on it too much. There's not a whole lot you can modify on those. We'll have to address a couple of small things. There's the motor for the trunk is actually broken on this used one, so a couple of other small cosmetics. I probably won't do much in the way of video on those, but thought I'd introduce you to the new vehicle. Well, I've been holding you in suspense on how I was going to paint this rear wing. It was a beautiful day outside, so I mounted up the freshly painted wing and took the daughter, who absolutely enjoys car shows, with me, and we went and hit a couple of car shows. And here is what the finished product looks like.
with my dad, which I lost him. So.
All right. It was a beautiful Saturday, and having just gotten that wing all painted up and mounted back on, took the daughter out for a couple of car shows and let some people see the new wing. I am really digging this. I don't know if you can call it a livery or not, but I'm really liking the color scheme with the stripes to kind of break up the black that I did on the end plates. And I've got some creature comfort stuff now with the shift knob and a cup holder. And I am ready to hit the track. Got an autocross scheduled here in a couple weeks. So I am looking forward to that. We checked a couple of things off the list. Didn't quite get all of the winter projects done, but we're plugging away on it. So we will continue working on some more of those projects in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys. Like or subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you on the next one.